Hello, namaste everyone. I welcome you all to this special session of GURUBODHA.
In this presentation, I would like to brief about medical cannabis. So, as the table of contents goes, we'll speak about cannabis, cannabinoids, Entourage Effect, cannabis in Ayurveda. So, I think you might have seen this, at least the plant photos in the web. So, wherein it's very highly discussed topic in the present scenario, especially after 2013, when the medical cannabis was very much research. Earlier also it was being researched, but more on a negative aspect to understand why and how the demonic aspect or demonized aspect, I should say, of getting high or the psychotropic effect was seen. But later after 2013, this became it flipped out from the psychotropic to medicinal aspect. So cannabis is a plant that belongs to the family Cannabinaceae and which is having the Latin names like, or the species, mainly there are three, that is Cannabis indica, Cannabis ruderalis, Cannabis sativa, out of which the Cannabis sativa is very commonly taken as medical cannabis. So, since 2000 BC, this particular plant was being used. This is the history of the plant right from the ancient or very ancient times. So, especially in Altai mountains of the Middle East, there is a archaeological finding that this was being used for various purposes. Initially, the seeds were used for nutrition. Then their fibers was found to be very useful, very strong enough, more stronger than nylon. That is the most thing, more important thing that was there. In fact, in 1941, even though we all speak of medical cannabis to be a very notorious thing, but in 1941, for the purpose of these fibers of these cannabis, especially to prepare the ropes and masts of warships, US took back this particular ban on it, which it had earlier banned on 1935, and for only 1 year after the World War II, again it reinstated the ban. So that much useful and strong or multi-purpose this particular thing. So from that moment, the cannabis was being used. Seeds were used for nutritional purpose. Even today, it is well beyond doubt. It is being understood as highly nutritive because it contains almost all essential amino acids and even polyunsaturated fatty acids, which is very good for body. And moreover, the cannabis is believed, or in fact it is researched and understood as the one that brings homeostasis to the body through endocannabinoid system. Now this endocannabinoid system is a very neurotransmitter system that we have in the body, which was explored and discovered between say 20 years of research from 92 rather 88 onwards till 2013, and the whole mapping of the system was done. And after that, only the importance of cannabis was very much understood, as endocannabinoid system is a master control system of the body, because of which the cannabis, where it contains phytocannabinoids, will act upon, and this through this ECS or endocannabinoid system, it will bring back the homeostasis of the body. So low dose and maximum effect this particular substance can give. Very low dose, it will give the effect because it is enough to, in fact, the use through inhalation, it is supposed to be understood that around 50% of that thing gets absorbed, especially THC and CBD. So in such low doses also, you can get the maximum effect. Solution to tough challenges of health, we will be going into what are the benefits of phytocannabinoids in the further slides. So where even the most difficult situations or of health challenges of health like neurological problems, then pain, nausea, vomiting. These are some of the areas which have been extensively researched and worked out for finding out challenges, because these are the places where the existing systems have failed to a certain extent. Now, most interesting thing about the cannabis is it is non-toxic. It is psychotropic, undoubtedly, but it is non-toxic. It doesn't kill you. In fact, kill anyone with 3 grams per kg body weight. Even after that, the LD50, 3000 milligrams, it is a non-toxic drug, and only problem with that is it produces the psychotropic effect. Other than that, it is absolutely safe and it doesn't kill anyone. So there are different cannabinoids. So there are three, in fact, varieties in that. One is endocannabinoids, second is phytocannabinoids, and the other one is synthetic cannabinoids. Now all these three have different effects and different this thing, I mean exertion power on the endocannabinoid system. So these are the different cannabinoids that is presently known. When explaining endocannabinoids, you have which are body synthesized. So where we have anandamide, 2-AG, nolandin ether, virodamine, NADA, OEA, PEA. Then you have phytocannabinoids, delta 9 THC, delta 9 THCV, then cannabinol, CBN, cannabidiol, CBD, CBD that is cannabidivarin, cannabigerol, cannabichromine. So these are the different phytocannabinoids, which in fact we have 125 phytocannabinoids that has been isolated or rather identified by research. These are some of the most important ones, and which is known to have certain effects. Then THC dominated. In fact, synthetic cannabinoids are usually like Spice, K2. These are different brand names. What is present in the market today, especially in the European and the American markets. So where their most concentration is towards unfortunately towards the recreational one, because they have mimicked THC and they have producing this particular thing. It is not that THC is, even though psychotropic is not medicinally useful, they are medicinally useful, but when used in a very judicious way. So now there are certain areas which has, in fact, made this particular thing, in fact, made this synthetic cannabinoids as illegal, especially in certain countries, mainly because of its adverse effect. Now, THC is having a psychotropic effect, and this is the main thing that has been used for recreational purposes. And the synthetic cannabinoids, which have been used as laboratory, I mean, copies of this THC, where it is being used. When we see the safety of this, endocannabinoids are the most safest one because they are produced in the body, and the THC mimicked synthetic cannabinoids are quite unsafe because of their adverse effects on the psychological status. That is why it is being most comparatively considered as illegal for use. Now coming to the phytocannabinoids, cannabis is the mainest, or the cannabis structures or cannabis things are most used. So it was first CBN that was discovered in the year 1899 AD. So from very early part of this last 2 centuries back, they have been entering into this understanding as what is the cause of the substance that is causing psychotropic effect, and ultimately they found first cannabinoid, that is CBN, in the year 1899 from a starched cannabis. So wherein they thought that CBN would have been psychotropic, mostly to demonize this particular drug, because this had entered into the US pharmacopoeia in the year 1850. So they wanted to demonize this and remove this so that the synthetic drugs will be much more beneficial or can be promoted. These are the different, we had enlisted around 6 different cannabinoids there. The first one, CBN, which was discovered in 1899, but it was not much understood. Later on, THC, CBD around 1960, that was Professor Raphael Mechoulam's contribution, where THC was known to or discovered as the one that causes psychotropic effect, whereas CBD has a multiple effect. It is anti-inflammatory, anti-nociceptive, and different effects CBD was exerting. So because of which the word medical cannabis came into existence. Now interestingly, cannabinoids or the phytocannabinoids can be seen in turmeric, pepper, pipali or long pepper, etc., but in very small aspects. In fact, this cannabinoids is basically taken from the name cannabis itself, because that is the best source, or the one which has the highest amount of cannabinoids. So first it was THC and CBD that was discovered, and then the sequence went in such a way that in 1988 they found that THC is acting on some receptor within the body, and that is where in 92 they found the first CB1 receptor. So, and then in due course of time they found out anandamide, the first endocannabinoid, that is in 94. So they also found that this EC, that is endocannabinoid system, whenever it went into a deficiency state. So they, so just to brief out before that, that the cannabinoids are like, that is mainly two, that is anandamide and 2AG are the two aspects that were usually seen in the, or they are generated in the body, and after some time it is degenerated in the body. So they, it used to maintain a level of tone or a level of concentration within the body, so that whenever or wherever it is needed, it can act. And these CB1 and CB2 receptors, that is the two important receptors that we have, these receptors are there in every part of the body, in fact every cell of the body, and but they are concentrated in certain areas, like in neurological points, that is the neurons, you have CB1 receptor more and CB2 are less. Then you have the cells, especially the immunomodulatory cells like macrophages, etc. You have CB2 receptors more and less of CB1. It is not that zero, but it is there. So every time there will be these both will be acting and they will be going on in that. But when we have all these different aspects, so where we have, so when we see the deficiency in these receptors, endocannabinoid systems, so we'll have different conditions. That is what the researchers have come into. That is low pain threshold. Then you have derangement of digestion. Then you have mood and sleep disturbances and migraine. So fibromyalgia. Then IBS. Then you have stress disorders and bipolar disease, dysmenorrhea, and glaucoma. So these are different conditions which are again can be modulated by correcting this endocannabinoid deficiency, and the correction is done by using phytocannabis. So where the best source, as I've told, is from cannabis. So what are the uses of phytocannabinoids? It is anti-inflammatory and analgesic. It is also useful in CNS disorders, that is multiple sclerosis, then Alzheimer's disease, Huntington's, Parkinson's, etc. Then you have cerebrovascular diseases, so where you have Down syndrome, almost everywhere. All these things have been proved through research. Of course, the researches are most preliminary. Psychological conditions also, like PTSD, that is post-traumatic stress disorder, OCD, schizophrenia. Now here in this condition where THC plays a very important role, and it is seen that more than going for isolates, it is better that a full raw extract is taken, because THC's unwanted effect is usually controlled by the CBD itself. Then you have drug dependence conditions. A very unique thing of this one is even THC withdrawal effects can be controlled by CBD. As I told, it controls that particular receptor activity. So even GI disorders, in fact, this is more emphasized in Ayurveda also, where most of the formulations are concentrated towards the gastrointestinal disorders. Then you have cancer and related conditions like pain management, tumor management, metastasis management, etc. So, how addictive is cannabis? Now, that is the main thing that everyone had in mind, and that is how the area which demonized this particular drug. Very interestingly, as I told, this is a safe drug in terms of toxicity and life threat, and even in addictiveness, you can see it is only 9% of the population that can get addicted to it. Whereas you have tobacco, which is 32%. This is from National Institute of Drug Abuse, US data. And there you can see that It is the least addictive drug, especially when there is THC. Then you have cannabis plant and its products, which is most commonly seen in the market. So you have 700 variants of cannabis plant. Now these 700 variants are because of the hybridization of the two, in fact, three different things. And you can see that the these 700 variants or things can be seen as what do you say, whole plant extract or single plant, that is isolate, then synthetic ones. Synthetic was, I have told that usually it's a replica of THC. In case of dosage forms, all the three can be seen in cigarette, vaporizers, edibles, not in India of course, but in European countries and US usually. Now when we come into the challenges of this, when we, especially in research area, but thing, the whole plant, usually, as I told, you have 700 important variants, so where it works into different levels. Basically, quality control is a big question with the whole plant extract, because the levels of THC vary with whole plant, especially when they are hybridized. It can go up till 25%. So that is the present condition. Then you have manufacturing standard operative procedures and all, which is not that easily possible with whole plants. Then define chemical definition of this plant is because there are 300 different constituents of cannabis found in cannabis plant. Finally, you have the entourage effect, which is a very important one. So single plant isolates are say you have molecules like CBD alone. Then you have multiple, that is aspects, isolates like CBD alone or THC alone. So where these are being used, but the problem with that is it will not have this entourage effect, and even there will be slight adverse or slight less effect compared to the full plant. This was observed in a research aspect itself when they researched on the entourage effect, which we'll be discussing further. And molecule choice is a big problem when it comes into challenges of research, especially when there are single molecules. Synthetic is, as mentioned earlier, is a replica. You know what is it, you know what is a molecule, you know what is the structure of the molecule. So potency will be very high, because of which it will be not having entourage effect, but it has more chances of an adverse effect. So high THC content can hamper, which is not very easily controlled. Whereas if you take a whole plant, you have CBD in that, which controls this THC. So it has an established regulatory, then it's a bit expensive. These are some challenges which we will have. Now coming to the entourage effect, the entourage effect, what we have is a very peculiar effect, which was first told by Raphael Mechoulam. So what is this entourage effect? Now, Raphael Mechoulam was the main person. He's known as father of medical cannabis, Israeli scientist who did all this work for 60 long years to establish the medicinal effect of cannabis. Now, he defined a variety of inactive metabolites and closely related molecules markedly increase the activity of primary constituents. So, primary constituents are single like THC and CBD, which is there in the cannabis. When you give the whole plant extract, so that is going to produce this entourage effect. So, where a single molecule fails to do that, or isolates and synthetic drugs, it cannot produce this particular effect because it is not we are not administering that. It is already singled out from the whole plant. But as a result, no, this effect is not there, and probably there is less or sometimes non-effective of the single molecules on the body. But when you give the whole aspect, you have cannabinoids. As I told, there are 125 cannabinoids, then out of 300. Then you have flavonoids, phenols, terpenes within this cannabis whole extract. So now this totally exerts an effect. Along with that, there are some of the inactive components. Among 125, you have 2 or 3 that is very active. Rest of them are inactive, and these at certain dose, at a certain environment, it helps or it augments the effect of the whole thing, the primary ones, and that is known as entourage effect. Very clearly defined. We'll come into the Ayurvedic point of view in a moment, but this is what is entourage effect. And the effect mainly depends on what was seen is the aspect like dose of the drug, administration route, whether it is oral or things like that, and individual resistance of the individual. So that is where the difference in dosage actually can. So the dosage, why? Because individual resistance to, especially in case of herbal drug administration, there is individual resistance towards a particular individual capacity. What in Charak Samhita also, Vyadhi Bala, Rogi Bala, everything has to be considered. So wherein this immunological resistance, what we can produce, so that makes the effect delayed or even increased also, antagonize it or synergize the whole thing. So this is what the clear definition was given by even Raphael Michelin regarding entourage effect that we had. Coming to the and even the type of product, so whether it is given through or whether you have combinations of these or like you have one more aspect known as full spectrum CBD in the market, which consists of not only one CBD, CBG, CBN, everything. So even that can produce this entourage effect to a certain extent. Now in Ayurveda, this cannabis as a medicine, there are around 210 formulations mentioned in Ayurveda with cannabis as one of the ingredients. Interestingly, it is leaves that is being used for the formulation preparation as an ingredient and not the flower buds. And it is the least one that has the least THC. Very interesting point is it is very rich in CBD. Leaves are very rich in CBD, which is mainly used for Ayurvedic medicinal formulations. So in that you have 193 formulations that is taken internally and 17 formulations that is given externally. So where you can see the importance of this particular substance. And even when we analyze the different aspects, so even among these 210 different formulations, the major ingredient like Madana Kameshwari, which has 25% of bhang or leaves of cannabis in that. Similarly, you have equal range is 102 formulations, and the rest of them are with one of very minor ingredient proportion of the ingredient as an ingredient. So that is around 91 of them. So rest is all like external ones. So where these formulations are given in 45 indications. That is, but among these, the major ones, that is around 30 formulations are given in or indicated in GI disorders or gastrointestinal disorder, and major one is Grahani. So now, after this, among these 45 indications, as I told, Grahani or which is usually equated to IBD, IBS, Crohn's disease or something, and Vajikarna, this is the other major indication that this particular thing is very commonly given. And it is told to be used with 50 different adjuvants. So like in case of Mother Kameshwari, it is said with milk, some with different like tender coconut water, things like that. So in Ayurveda, you have 22 different dosage forms, Churna, Lehyam, and Taila. Different dosage forms are being used, and the dose range as per the Ayurvedic text is from 1 Rati to 1 Pala depending on the dosage form it is being given. Coming to the time of administration, usually it is told as once a day, that is morning or night. As in case of Madan Kameshwar, it is given at night as per the textual reference. And duration also, as per the references, it depends on what type of drug that is doing, what type of dosage, and what is the concentration of the cannabis that is being used. Accordingly, it is from 7 days and it can go up till 365 days. Nothing, there's a huge range of duration of administration. But there is one restriction that is being told here, and that is very specific. That is milk diet or it may differ with disease to disease. Then others are generalized restrictions that you have, like you have to avoid night outs, oil massage, even sexual activity with respect to certain indications. So these may vary accordingly. Then coming to this is a brief of why medical cannabis is very important. Not only important from these contemporary medicines, but also from Ayurvedic systems. Also, this has been a very age-old way. In fact, there is one reference from Chinese medicine that it was used as an anesthetic drug also. So it has a multiple benefits. So which can wherein if we are not using it for judiciously for a medicinal purpose, in fact we are depriving of patients of a great medicine.
So there is a question like, what are the effects of cannabis on endocannabinoid? Will it reduce the production of endocannabinoid if used recreationally?
Endocannabinoid system, as I told, is consisting of three different parts. First is cannabinoids, second is cannabinoid receptors, and third is enzymes. So it is the functioning, the whole thing is a collective activity of these three. So what does this phytocannabinoids do? Especially the two important phytocannabinoids, namely THC and CBD. So these phytocannabinoids, they at times mimic the two, that is anandamide and 2-AG. Now 2-AG and anandamide are two important cannabinoids that act on CB1 and CB2. But THC mimics, it's a partial agonist of the CB1 receptor, whereas CBD is antagonist of CB1 receptor. Now, what CB1, why I'm specifying CB1 receptor is, CB1 receptor is the one that is present in brain or nervous system, any part, brain, spinal cord, peripheral nerve, wherever there is synapses, there is CB1 receptor in the presynaptic area. And the anandamide or the primary cannabinoid, endocannabinoid, it is something that is produced only when there is a certain condition. First condition is there is a release of neurotransmitter, or if there is a increase in the calcium ion concentration of the postsynaptic neuron. So only then it is synthesized, and then it goes into the, and it attaches itself to the receptor CB1. Then where CB1 activates, and it increases the potassium ion concentration, and it decreases the calcium ion concentration, and ultimately after its work or after its basic functions, then it is immediately degenerated. So it is like prepares it, and it degenerates. So what happens when you give THC for recreational, especially? So recreational below 18 years, it above 18 years, I should say, it doesn't give much difference to or problem to the AEA. In fact, it increases AEA concentration, that is anandamide, and it increases or delays the effect of anandamide. It increases its effect in other sense, because in low dose it mimics anandamide, THC, and it attaches to the receptor. Now CB1 receptor is continuously activated. That is why you have this high psychotropic effect. But once, just like any other endocannabinoid, even this gets completely degenerated after the particular time, especially the FAH. This is the enzyme, fatty amino acid hydrolase enzyme. So that degenerates anandamide. It also degenerates this particular thing. So ultimately, it is thrown out of the body. But only there is no, it doesn't hamper the effect, activity of the endocrine, the effect. But upon high doses of THC, this is where we have to be a bit careful. It is a partial agonist in the sense it is dose related agonist. So when higher dose, it is seen that it decreases the effect of or the activity of CB1 receptor. It will act as antagonist. So this is where the difference comes. So anandamide doesn't do that. Because it's an endocannabinoid receptor, endocannabinoid, where it is body is itself producing, and it is where only functionally it is necessary. Otherwise, it is not necessary. As soon as its function is over, it is completely degenerated. But you are supplementing with phytocannabinoid, and it increases the effect. But there is no other harm as such. So only thing is it increases that duration, a euphoric effect it produces. But below 18 years, and specifically mentioned below 18 years, is a point where brain is developing. So when you take low doses, it is an agonist. Very low dose, that is for medicinal use, it doesn't produce any problem. But it is seen that in higher doses, it affects brain development, especially below 18 years. So that is why higher dose, it is highly not recommended for children, pregnant, and those below 18 years. This is as per the research papers I am mentioning here.
Thank you very much. See you all in the next session. GURUBODHA. Namaste.
Namaste.